What we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that we knew exactly what those monies would go towards, that we had our systems and processes in place. We can prove out our business model, we can prove out our operations. That way, we could approach somebody from an investment standpoint with much more confidence, much more clarity in terms of what works, what doesn't. That way, we know where their funds would go. And then also in that way, you have a little bit more leverage too when it's time to negotiate a term sheet. And so all of those things we had in mind, but we're starting to think about it now.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. Now, that was Austin Rolling, and Austin's the founder and CEO of Outfield. And Austin's journey is a great story of persistence and resilience, and not the least of which is that his product, those companies created around, is created and designed specifically for field sales teams. And well, his team has had to pivot a bit during COVID, and we'll get into what he's doing to prepare for what I like to call the next normal. We're also going to talk about being homeless, as Austin was not that long before he started Outfield. I mean, that's not the typical journey for an entrepreneur. You want to make sure you listen to that because it's a very interesting story. And we're also going to dig into what Austin foresees as the future of field sales. He has some interesting ideas around that. So a lot of good stuff here today. Be sure to stick around. Before we get to Austin, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also give us your feedback about how we're doing in the form of a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Austin, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. How you guys doing?
Well, we're doing great. I mean, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Just looking forward to the weekend. Hoping for the best out of my Texas Aggies. I don't have high expectations. Yeah.
So you did the whole cadet thing?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I just went there for grad school.
Oh, for grad school. Okay. All right. So that was your MBA where you got that. Okay.
Correct.
All right. So where was your undergrad?
I went to Eastern Michigan University. I studied communication there.
That's Ypsilanti?
Correct. How'd you know?
Well, I got a world of trivia stuffed into my head. Useless information that just, once it's there, it just doesn't go away.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm happy at the fact that you got the name right. A lot of people I come across, they can't even pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been sheltering here in the Houston area?
Yep, I've been here since about 2009. I'm actually moved down here during the recession.
Yeah.
I was working for Whirlpool at the time and actually hated the East Coast. They sent me to Philly, and Philly is a really, really interesting city. But it wasn't for me, so I decided to come down to Houston, and it's been home ever since.
Well, part of that probably weather related.
It was weather related, man. But I'm a Midwestern guy.
I know, but enough is enough, right? I mean, I grew up in Wisconsin, but when I went to school in California, it's like, well, I'm not going back to Midwest.
Well, it was partly the cold. But in Philly, the people are cold, which, I mean, that adds a totally different dynamic to it.
Oh.
And and so that was like, I'm not a good fit. I like to smile and look people in the eyes. And they don't really do that so much.
Really?
Yeah.
I never did. I've not spent I shouldn't say I haven't spent a ton of time in Philadelphia. Actually, I lived there from the time I was 6 months to 3 years old, but I have no recollection of that. So I have no idea whether they're friendly. It might have been a few times, but all right. Well, Houston's a great place. So a question for you is,
sure.
So what's the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself during the pandemic?
Biggest lesson is managing your attitude, managing your mental health.
How do you do that?
Yeah, most people can relate, but the pandemic has been really, really challenging, both on a personal level, but even also on a professional level. For me, it's just about remaining optimistic, trying to be innovative during these times, and then it's about waking up in the morning, challenging yourself to be the best that you could possibly be. I listen to a lot of motivational stuff throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And I work out a tremendous amount, and I just try to remain positive. And so during these times, it's actually been, I think, as a business owner, I think that we may actually look back at this time and realize that this was one of the most important years for us as a company, and I truly believe that. So,
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, I think that moments of great stress, as you said,
yeah,
that have way of, if people are deliberate, as it sounds like you were being, about, A, taking care of yourself, but B, doing the things you need to do to maintain as positive an outlook as you can. I think, yeah, it presents opportunities for people.
the reason why that's important is as a business owner, your team takes cues off of you, right? And so your energy, you need to constantly monitor your energy and how you project yourselves, because that's gonna rub off on the people that you work with. And during these times, more than ever, you need to have that optimism and the right energy. And it's really important. But I'm excited.
Well, and the pandemic really sort of created this whole new world for your company, because your entire product line is really oriented for field sales teams. So I'm just sort of curious how your world has changed, and have you had to pivot in the face of the pandemic?
Yeah, we actually did. And that was one of the things. Anytime I hire somebody on, I take them through a Steve Blank Udacity course that you can find online. But
Right.
the premise of that course is just how to think entrepreneurial, right? And I want everybody on my team. Right now, we're about a team of 15, split between business, 50% business and engineers. But I mean, it's important for everyone on your team to kind of think from an entrepreneurial standpoint, because that's how you can identify opportunities in the midst of a pandemic. And yeah, we've pivoted in a number of different ways, and I've challenged my entire team to be creative, think outside of the box. What are some opportunities that maybe we put to the back burner in the past that now presents themselves as an opportunity worth pursuing? And yeah, we've had to pivot, and we're getting ready to launch a new app that I'm really, really excited about. I truly think it's going to be disruptive for the business to business sales space.
Okay. Well, will you be able to tell us about it?
I absolutely can.
Okay. Well, before you do that, let's, because I've had guests on the show before that have come on and said, "Well, I've got this exciting new product, but unfortunately, I can't tell you anything about it." And it's like, well, come on, that ruins the whole surprise. All right, so we'll get back to that.
Sure.
But tell people what Outfield does now, or what you were doing when the pandemic hit, because it was really oriented towards helping you manage your field sales teams.
Yeah, so Outfield, it's a web and mobile-based software application, and it's designed primarily for organizations who compete through outside sales, field marketing, field merchandising activities. And that's how we started. We started, catering to that workflow. My background was in, prior to grad school, and even a little bit outside of grad school, was in, I worked in a variety of different sales positions, including outside sales. And I just, I knew that there was a sort of a workflow difference that we can cater and build around. And, we sought to do that. And we started the company in 2015, pre-COVID. We registered at least 150 different companies in 70 different countries around the world. And so it's been quite a journey. And, our biggest value proposition is just being able to offer a user experience and a user interface that really supports a traveling sales rep. And likewise, sales managers, you got to imagine, if you got 100 different outside sales reps working remotely around the country, you need a better way to be able to track and manage their activity and understand, the nuances that make one market different from another. And so we created a platform that allows companies to capture that data.
Well, you're saying emphasize field marketing. So field marketing meaning primarily those organizations that are servicing like retail stores, like brands that sell to,
Yep,
retail?
and that was our very first customer, and that's how we got into business. The folks who don't know, our company, we started in Bryan College Station, which is just north of Houston. That's where Texas A&M is. And the first company of ours was Cellucor, which they produce, manufacture nutraceutical products like protein shakes and pre-workouts, all of this different stuff that you'll find in like a vitamin shop, a GNC, a Total Nutrition. Right. And at the time, this was 2015, and they generated, I want to say, a couple $100 million a year. And it had a number, I want to say 100 outside sales reps around the country. And they just didn't really have a really good centralized way of being able to track all of that activity. How many samples were they dropping off? What were the merchandising shelves looking like? Who did they speak with when they dropped into a store? And honestly, if they actually went, because sometimes people would report that they will go into a store and they're just sitting on the couch, Right. So they needed a way to be able to manage all of that activity. And we built a solution for them.
Right. And so it includes things like route planning, to your point about people sitting on the couch. So I presume, I plan the routes, but they can also track, as you said, whether they actually do it.
Yeah, they can. We built in a route planner. It incorporates Google API system, and it's really just about managing your territory. When I was in outside sales, I would sometimes spend 35 to 40% of my week just behind the wheel. And as you know, the more time you spend behind the wheel, the less contacts that you actually have with customers, right? And so if we can create a system that streamlines that entire process, then, over the course of a year, you should be able to drive more results.
So what basically has happened, we can sort of guess, but what's happened with your clients in terms of, okay, I can't send my people to the stores, or the stores aren't even open?
Yeah, and that's been an interesting sort of thing. The good news is that as different metros start to open up, we're starting to see an uptick in, top line growth and utilization of the app. But when March and April hit, it was really a tough time for us because we didn't know what to expect. And it was one of those situations where, like you mentioned earlier, we were like, our entire business model is built around face-to-face interactions. Right. And now, that's being taken off the table. Right. And so we just didn't know what was going to happen. And, a good, business, a good executive team, they try to build a business that is insulated from market conditions the best that they can. Right. So we're diversified in a number of different verticals. Right. We're diversified across a number of different regions. But this was a global pandemic.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah. So, our entire business was impacted by this. And it was just one of those times where, you really have to practice, resolve and navigate through this winter, right? It really was a winter for us. And we just had to, stay the course and think about different ways to influence the market and how can we create incremental value above and beyond what we were doing at the time. For all intents and purposes, my sales team, they're inside sales reps, right? And so they're actually able to use our solution for inside sales. Now, granted, we're still positioned in the marketplace as an outside sales tool, but inside sales reps can use our system in a very effective way. And so that was one of the things that we shifted our attention to. Well, all right, let's train up our customer base on how they can adjust themselves and how they can adapt to this new world and how they can work in office and utilize our system to be effective.
Right. So what's the new thing?
What is the new thing? All right. So for the folks who don't know, the name of our company is called Outfield, right? Like you're throwing a baseball from the outfield. And one of the ways that we've positioned ourselves in, a competitive sort of CRM marketplace is one of the ways is brand positioning, right? We've always tried to identify our brand as this marriage between sports and sales. Mm-hmm. Okay. Even from the articles that we would post, from the content that we would release, it was, we tried to tell a sales story through the lens of, some sort of sports narrative.
Right.
That was compelling. And then later on, we said, well, how can we take this to another notch? And I'm giving you a history lesson to kind of tell you where we're going.
Sure.
Outfield, one of the challenges that we faced early on was, okay, our NPS scores, our Net Promoter scores, always ranked higher for the sales manager, right, than it would for the sales rep. The sales manager, they got a lot of everything that they needed in terms of being able to track the activity of the reps, collecting the data that they need in order to be effective. But outside sales reps, they kind of viewed our solution as a tracker.
Yeah, command and control, which is the way reps look at CRM systems in general.
Yeah.
They don't like them. They don't like them nearly as much as the managers do. Yes.
Right, and so we wanted to change how we were positioned in the minds of a sales rep, because what happens is if a rep in order to create an effective CRM, it needs to be a platform that both creates value for the manager and the sales rep. Right. If it's one without the other, then chances are that company is going to churn out. Right. So how can we create something that is viewed by the sales rep as this awesome productivity tool? In addition to creating incremental features that provide value for the rep, like a route planner and just different tools that'll help them manage their accounts, well, we were like, okay, well, how can we create a platform that challenges the sales rep to become better? And challenge them to maximize the utilization of the tool. And what's one thing that we know about salespeople? They're competitive, right? They like being recognized for being good, right?
Right.
And so we released. This was back in February. We released a system within Outfield. It's called League Play, which is basically a gamification system within Outfield, right? Where reps get to compete with one another on a weekly, monthly cadence, and they get recognized for all the awesome stuff that they're doing out in the field. And in addition to being able to compete with their colleagues, they're able to compete with their personal bests, right? And so you can think about what we built as almost like a Madden or an NBA 2K within Outfield. And Andy, when we released that program within Outfield, it was a smash hit. It was a smash hit. It was the first time that we released a feature where the utilization of that feature went completely north. People were loving it, right? And they didn't view for the first time they didn't really view Outfield as this tracking tool. They viewed it as something that now I'm creating as a platform where I can create a personal brand for myself, right? A reputation, right?
Right.
And so, one thing about reputations is once you establish a reputation, you want to live up to that reputation.
You have to live up to it, yeah.
Yeah, and so these reps, they get scored and they get ranked based on their performance. They get scored and they get ranked based on their utilization of the app. And so now we're incentivizing people to use the solution the right way. And if they utilize the system in the right way, then the managers are getting all the data that they need, right? And so these reps, they are establishing this profile for themselves. We rank them in categories of hustle. We rank them in categories of leadership and all these different statistical categories. It's very similar to like a Madden, right? And so we were like, okay, this is awesome. People are really, really liking this. And they're really trying to figure out, well, how can I rank higher in this category? How can I rank higher in this category? And we're like, okay, awesome. They care about it. It's one thing to release a feature and nobody gives a crap about it. They care about their reputation now, right? And so then the next thing opened up and we were like, okay, well, how can we enhance this? How can we make it better? And so we are in the process of releasing a new app. It's called Closers Coffee, which is basically a new environment where it's the very first league where sales reps can compete with other sales reps across the globe. League play within Outfield, they can only compete with their colleagues. Now they can port their data from Outfield over into closers. And now that's a completely different environment.
So anybody in the Outfield community they're competing against?
Anybody within the Outfield community they're competing against. And remember, we have customers all across, the four corners of the globe, right? Across different industry verticals. And we're really, really excited about, because now that opens up opportunities for these guys to really, really establish a personal brand for themselves, very similar to an athlete.
Well, and so, are companies okay with that?
We're going to find out.
I presume that people can't take their proprietary data and so on out there. But so on what basis are they competing with other companies, other users, the reps of other users around the world?
Yeah, it's not proprietary data. So if I were to close a deal with ABC company, that deal would port over into the Closers app. But my profile, my personal statistics, without revealing actual details of that deal, my personal statistics would port over. It's almost like a fantasy league sort of thing where.
Yeah. Well, I like that idea. What are the statistics that are public within Closers Coffee?
Yeah. So within Outfield right now, you can go into Outfield, and every user has like a player card. It's very reminiscent to a baseball card. I'm sure so people in your audience, some of them are old enough to remember that.
Well, given it's Outfield, that's not surprising. It should be a baseball card, yeah.
Right. So on the back of it, we started off with the hustle category, right? Leadership category, and a couple of other different categories like preparation. And all of these categories, within each category is an algorithm, right? And there's a number of different variables within that algorithm that makes up your score. So there's a macro score, a total score, and then there's individual categories like attributes. And the attributes, kind of like Google, right? You don't really know how to rank high to give you tips, and to rank high on Google, it's like this algorithm that features a number of different variables. We kind of took that and just based on what the activities that they're doing within Outfield, we're ranking them in different statistical categories. And so we never reveal to our users, what those variables are. We just give them clues, just similar to like Google does. And if you remember, Google they're constantly refining their algorithm over time. So what we want to do is we want there to eventually be the strong correlation between what that score is and what that sales rep actually is in real life. And it'll get better over time. That's what we anticipate. It'll get better and more refined over time. And in addition to just the Outfield ecosystem, we plan to be able to integrate with all different sorts of CRMs.
Interesting.
That's the kicker.
Well, I love the idea. I love this idea of is there a way that we can take all the variables, so a rep comes from industry A, and let's say he's applying for a job in industry B. And industry B says, well, you got no experience. It looks like you have a good track record at A, but I have no way of knowing that's relevant. Yeah, I think sort of the golden idea for the future is some way, it sounds like you're sort of beginning to think about it this way, is how can I create a series of statistics that sort of normalize between industries to say, this person's a rank on 1 to 100. So this guy's a 90. Yeah. And the 90 is relevant to you because if you know that a 90 will be okay in your field as well.
And that's the part that I'm really, really excited about. That's the part. I figure if you get enough smart people in a room, we can figure out how to do that.
Right. Right.
But I'm really, really excited to be able to solve for that.
Very interesting.
Yes. Initially, we're going to break things down in the way that we look at it. It's kind of like when you think about the UFC and you think about the boxing world, how they got heavyweight, light heavyweight, they got featherweight, middleweight, and all these different divisions. That's how we can start it off. We can start this thing off by kind of segmenting different people based on, volume, volume of
Mm-hmm.
deals versus, overall sales per transaction. And there's ways that we can dice it up initially.
Right.
But our end goal is to be able to normalize this in such a way that it can translate over across different industries. Mind you, this has never been done before.
No, it's not. I think it's a very, very interesting idea, and I think it's something that's long overdue, at least from my perspective. No, seriously, I think this is that could become your business. By the way,
it could be. Yeah,
that's my humble opinion. All right, so do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
Because you have sort of a very unique founder story. Because just after you earned your MBA, you found yourself homeless.
I did. I really did.
Tell us about that.
After grad school, couldn't get a job, man.
That sums it up.
Yeah, I couldn't get a job. And part of the reason why is I didn't really prime myself like some of the other students. A lot of the other students during college, they did internships with, these top companies, either in big consulting, big or high finance or oil and gas. I did my internship for free at Startup Aggieland, which was an on-campus accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
I had every intentions to go to B school in order to become an entrepreneur afterwards. I did the corporate America thing. It wasn't really for me. And so my experience, I tried to tailor my experience to give me as much exposure to entrepreneurship as I possibly could. But the trade-off was, well, now you're not networking with some of these big companies. So after, during the transition between my last semester in college, I started up, me and my co-founder, we started up an organization called BCS Startup, which basically the goal there was to establish this entrepreneurial ecosystem within Bryan College Station that was very similar to Austin or Boulder, through that we met a lot of different people. Obviously, that concept, I'm hoping that people within A&M they've kind of improved since we've ended that organization, but not any of that really translated to a career, right? And so we start up all these different projects, and a lot of them failed. And after BCS Startup, we did something called Mentor Match. We coined a Mentor Match, where we got a little seed investment from one of the accelerators in College Station. They gave us about $20,000 to get that company off the ground. And again, it didn't really work, right? It didn't really work for a number of different reasons. But then after that, I found myself with no options, right? And so it's like, all right, we went through that 20,000 pretty easily. I had no backup plan. I had no backup plan. In my mind, I thought that was going to work, and it did not.
Yeah, suddenly no home, no car.
Suddenly, no home, no car. When I was doing that, man, a lot of things started to spin out of control. I lost my house and my car. Yeah,
wow. So where'd you live?
Yeah, I was I lived people's floors. I lived on people's couches. I lived wherever I could live in order to kind of catch a break. And so we.
Did you have the vision for Outfield in mind already at that point? I mean, what was keeping you going? Yeah,
what was keeping me going after college is after after that second venture, we put a nail in it. I said, okay, let me just do this. Let me just go get a job, right? And so in that process, here I am. I'm like couch surfing and floor searching, trying to find a job with big corporate America, which that wasn't a dream of mine. But it was all right. I'm hurting right now, but it would never work out. Interviews wouldn't work. I couldn't get the interviews that I would get. Something would happen where I just didn't get the job. Right? I would go through 5 or 6 interviews, and they decided to go somewhere else, go with somebody else. And I just said, you know what? All right. Let me go back to the guys who invested in our second startup and see if there were any opportunities with them. And Manish Patel was the president at the time, and Doss Cunningham, he's a CEO. And they were Doss is an Aggie, but I developed I don't know. I guess they found some sort of favor in me at the time, and they were like, okay, well, here's what we do have is we got all of these outside sales reps working for our nutraceutical company, and we have no idea what they're doing. So as it turns out, the company who invested in our seed startup, they actually ran Cellucor, and they had another problem that they needed to solve for. They knew that myself and my co-founder, we knew how to execute on building stuff. My background happened to be in outside sales, so I knew exactly what that value proposition was. So that amounted to about a year and a half. Like this whole transition, it was about a year and a half of couch surfing, floor searching before I went back to these guys and I said, all right, we got another concept. Help us solve this problem. And boom, right? That's when it happened, right? And so we started building out Outfield. And they were an industry leader, right? And so, once their competitors found out that they were using this application called Outfield, we were able to penetrate that vertical. If Cellucor is using this and they're one of the top dogs in this space, then they must be doing something right with this application.
Yeah, you got to get that anchor client, and then lots of referrals.
Yeah. So we did that, and while I was getting that company off of the ground, I finally got a job with Beats by Dre. Finally got a job with Beats by Dre, which was an outside sales position. Imagine that. I was using my app for their organization.
Yeah, so you're doing field marketing for.
I was correct. Right. And the fact that it was a remote position, and I could kind of create my schedule with them, that allowed me to do both at the same time. I was building my company while working. I had a steady flow of income coming in. So all the money that we were making with Outfield, I just reinvested back into the company. Me and my partner, we weren't on payroll for the first 2 years. We just started hiring engineers. We started hiring students.
But you're paying the rent by your day job, though.
Yeah, I was paying the rent by my day job. So it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. And I'm a person of faith, and I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. It really wasn't meant for me to land a job within corporate America like that. Because those type of positions, they were going to offer me $150,000. But then, that's 60, 70 hours of my life. And I just knew in a situation like that, I would have never been able to work on a startup project. So the perfect opportunity came by with Beats, and that allowed me to do both. And ever since then, man, we've just been growing this company. And this has just been a testament, man, because, that first year and a half, it was really, really dark. There were times where
I can imagine.
I was checking myself into the hospital, man, because I was having panic attacks and it was really, really dark, really, really dark time. So it was rough, man. It really, really was rough.
So if you were to sort of, summarize, if you could put in a capsule, say, people, because one of the issues that we talk about in this program is mental health in sales, and it's a tough issue, especially now during the pandemic, in particular. But always is. So what? Yeah, if you'd summarize, what got you through it? What was?
A lot of quality and uplifting media. I would surround myself with. I read a lot, positive thinking type books. I listened to a lot of motivational tapes. I listened to a lot of Christian music. Anything that can keep me uplifted, I had to. I worked out a lot. I needed those endorphins, right? I needed to. And so when it came to managing my mental health, this isn't anything that you do one time a day. Managing your mental health is something that you do consistently throughout the day. You might need to stop throughout the day. You may need to pray, or you may need to meditate, whatever you believe in. Take out a second periodically throughout the day and try to just keep yourself uplifted. And if there's anybody around you that's generating negative stimuli, you kind of gotta stiff arm them. And I remember, man, when I was trying to get this company off the ground and I was couch surfing and all this other stuff, man, You get a lot of people even in your inner circle who start to like kind of doubt you a little bit, and it's like,
right.
and so you kind of got to just push them aside, and you just got to focus on what you believe in. You got to focus on what you believe in. Just from a mental health perspective. From a mental health perspective, that's the key thing that I want to get across. It's not anything that you do once a day. It's not anything that you do one time a week. You don't go to a motivational seminar once a year. This is a constant practice. This is a constant practice that we as a people, we need to undertake if we really want to maximize on our potential.
Very interesting. And so just to follow, sort of close the loop on Outfield a little bit, is that, so you still basically have bootstrapped the company?
Yeah, we bootstrapped
So why haven't you made that decision to say, let's go get some external funding?
Good question. We're thinking about it now, quite honestly. One of the things that's important is for us being in accelerators and just, reading all the entrepreneurial books, and my co-founder, he's really astute in entrepreneurship as well. I mean, we came across a lot of horror stories. One from, bringing in somebody into your company who may not be aligned with you in terms of vision or personality. That was one thing that we were concerned about. Something else is, as an entrepreneur, you want to make sure that you have your systems and processes together before you get a lot of money, right? Because otherwise, we see people all the time who get a crap ton of money, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million in investment. And next thing you know, 2 years later, they're broke again, and now they're raising again. And next thing you know, they've diluted their stake in their company to 3%. Right? We didn't want to do that. What we wanted to do was, What we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that we knew exactly what those monies would go towards, that we had our systems and processes in place. We can prove out our business model. We can prove out our operations. That way, we could approach somebody from an investment standpoint with much more confidence, much more clarity in terms of what works, what doesn't. That way, we know where those funds would go. And then also in that way, you have a little bit more leverage too when it's time to negotiate a term sheet. And so all of those things we had in mind. But now we're starting to think about it now. But that's a good question. We've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years. We just wanted to make sure we knew what we were doing before we go out and spend somebody else's money.
Well, I think there's a lot of virtue in bootstrapping a company. The startup that I did, a number of startups, and the one that was the biggest success by far was one that was essentially bootstrapped. Took it, the founder and his co-founders and the good management team, took it from, I was there from, we went like 5 to 125, and now they're multi-billion, and basically bootstrapped. So it can be done. As long as what he did was so wise, that CEO and founder was, just wasn't going to be swayed by other people's timeframes. He had the vision, and competitors were growing 2-3 times faster at the time. He didn't get panicked by it. Just had the vision, stayed the course, and all those other companies disappeared, and this one didn't.
Here's the thing. Out of the top CRMs for outside sales, we're top 3 right now. But all of our competitors, they raised. So we're in a similar situation.
Yeah. It sort of goes along with your story about having this vision and having faith throughout the dark times, is having that same vision with your company. That, and if you wanted to, if you want to explore new business models, it's difficult sometimes when you're attached to a VC who just wants to return in 5 to 10 years. They want you to kind of stay the course. But I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a son of an entrepreneur. I'm the grandson of an entrepreneur, and I love thinking outside of the box. And so I would hate for somebody to just kind of nail us down to something because it's convenient for them. I don't know if we could spin out Closers Coffee into this global sales league if
we had a VC that was attached to the idea of Outfield alone. So that's something else you got to be mindful of.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do like that idea. Closers. So
yeah, either this is going to be $1 billion idea or it's going to fail. But you know what? I could not think of any reason not to try doing this.
Yeah, I like it. All right. So, Austin,
yes,
tell folks how they can connect with you and learn more about what you're doing.
You know what? Honestly, I'm not the biggest social media guy. I'm actually kind of a private person.
I know you are hard to find on social media.
Yeah, I'm not big on social media. My email is austin@outfieldapp.com. I'm also available on LinkedIn. I'm not on Instagram. I don't have Snap. I'm kind of old school.
Yeah, you're even hard to find a little bit on LinkedIn, but
yeah, I'm kind of old school like that. I do have a Facebook. My family won't let me delete my Facebook. They won't let me delete it. So you can probably find me on Facebook too.
All right. Well, the email's good. All right, Austin, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
Outstanding. Thank you for having me.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm so grateful for your support, as always, of this show. And I want to thank my guest, Austin Rolling, for sharing his journey with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could also leave us a rating or a review and let us know how we're doing, we'd appreciate it. You can do all that on your phone in less than a minute as soon as this episode is over. So thank you for your help. And thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.